Hello and welcome back or welcome to my channel if you are new here. I know it's been a while, but we are back with another installment of the Vampire Diaries cast recommends me books. So we are going to start off with a highly anticipated book for me. And by highly anticipated, I mean that I've had this on my TBR for like a year and a half, and I have been trying to avoid it and avoid spoilers for it because I knew I was going to be reading it for this video. So I'm happy to finally be getting to it. But before we get into the book, let's first talk about who this recommendation came from. My inner child was freaking out because before I watched this cast member on TVD, I was watching her on Nickelodeon on a show that you might remember called Unfabulous. And if you know the show, then you know exactly who I'm talking about. Even in death, this character could not escape the Jeremy love triangle. So a huge thank you to Melise Zhao, also known as Anna, for this recommendation. Meeting Melise was such a joy. She is such a sweetheart. She's so nice. I mean, everybody was nice. Well, almost everybody was nice. But out of everyone that I met, I would say there's probably like 4 people that really stood out as just being like, just radiating this like positive, like joyous, sweet energy, and she was one of them. I brought up Unfabulous and she was like kind of shocked. She was like, oh wow, like you're an OG fan. I'm just like, yeah girl, you know. But yeah, she was great, she was sweet, she was just an adorable human being. And so the book that she recommended was none other than Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I already had this book, I already owned it, it was on my shelf, and I was obviously already planning to read it. I just had not gotten around to it because this is, I mean, look at this book. This book is like 600 plus pages and the font is not the biggest. It's kind of, you know, smaller font. Big book, small font, you know. It's going to be a journey to get through this. And so I was waiting until the right time to read this, waiting until a time where I knew that I could like dedicate and focus on a book that is going to be this chunky. And I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I was going to vlog it. I vlogged Fourth Wing. I'll link that if you haven't seen that. But I vlogged Fourth Wing. I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I was going to vlog this one. But then once she recommended it, I was like, well, now I have to vlog it. This book, I believe, picks up maybe like a couple of weeks after Fourth Wing ends. So it kind of basically picks up pretty much where you left off. If I'm being honest, I haven't heard the best things about this book. That's another reason why I had kind of been putting it off, because there was a lot of excitement and hype around it. And then once it came out, people read it. There was a lot of criticism about it. People weren't really enjoying it, and so I was kind of like, okay, well, there's no rush for me to get to it if it's not going to be that great in the first place. So I've kind of been putting it off for that reason as well. So join me as I read through this chunker of a book that already does not have the best reviews, and we'll see. I mean, Melise said it was good. This was the book she recommended, so I'm hoping that it will be good. Maybe the critics are wrong, you know, I don't know, we'll see. But let's jump into it, and I will be back with an update once I've gotten a little bit into this book. Alright, so I am back with my first check-in for Iron Flame. I'm about 40% in. I'm somewhere around, I don't remember exactly where I left off, but like somewhere around chapter 26-ish, give or take. And I forgot, because it's been so long since I've read Fourth Wing, I forgot that this show is kind of like TVD in a sense that like any character that comes on to the show or any character that you get introduced to in the book is likely to get killed off if they're not part of like the core cast. You can basically assume that if you learn a character's name, they're probably gonna die if they're not part of that like core group. And even when they are, or seemingly are, a part of the core group, they still end up dying. So that was a nice little refresher because I completely forgot how ruthless this book was when it comes to its characters. I will say that this book does a really good job by being a sequel. It does a really good job of kind of like reminding you of things that happened in the first book in case you're like me and you decided not to reread the first book before going into this one. It's been almost 2 years since I've read the first book. I will say though that I'm not loving the romance that's happening. Like, this is supposed to be a romantasy, and the romance is kind of annoying in this book. It's kind of like getting in the way, I feel like. Violet is just being like really obnoxious right now. She feels like she can't trust Xaden because he kept this like really big, huge secret from her, and she's like, I can't trust him. And so because I can't trust him, I can't be with him, but like every part of my body is yearning to be with him, and I just want to rip off my clothes every time I see him. And it's like, girl, simmer down, pull yourself together. So I think that I could do without the drama of their relationship, because it's drama for the sake of drama. There isn't really anything at stake for real when it comes to them being together. It's just Violet being Violet. Violet being stubborn and just being annoying. So yeah, kind of hate that. But I reached a point where they brought back a character. I know I just said earlier that like every character is fair game to get killed, which is still true. And this book is not quite like TVD, because in TVD, most of the characters that get killed off come back at some point. I cannot say the same for this, although we've had a return of one character. But I'm a little disappointed, because while I love the fact that they brought a character back, because maybe there's hope for some of the other characters that we've lost to come back, I hate the character that they brought back. Like, out of all the characters that you could have chosen, like, that's who you decided. I don't think anybody asked you to do that, Rebecca. Like, what were you thinking? But basically, you know, besides the fact that this character just returned, we're kind of just still dealing with the same stuff we were dealing with in the first book, in terms of, like, the government, so to speak, the government, the military, whatever, the people that's like part of leadership kind of concealing information from the civilians, and then being kind of in this dangerous situation where there's probably a war that's brewing, and them trying to prepare for how to deal with said war. And Violet knows a lot of this information, but she can't share it with her friends, or she feels like she can't share it with her friends because she feels like it's dangerous to know. And one of the things that is also happening is that she is noticing that people that were a part of that final battle at the end of book 1, the ones who made it back alive, they are being targeted, it seems, by like the leadership of the school, of the college. And so she feels like she can't share this information with her friends, because it'll basically put a target on their back, and then they might end up being targeted by the leadership too. And so she's holding in a lot of information. She's holding in a lot of secrets, and it's making it difficult for her to be able to spend time with her friends. One, because she's spending so much time trying to like save the world, but also because when she does have time to kind of just hang out with her friends, she like can't really say anything. She can't really talk about what's going on in her life and stuff, because she doesn't want to put them in danger, which I do feel like is not her decision to make. I feel like she should allow them to decide if they want to know the information, if they want to put themselves at risk. But I appreciate what she's trying to do. But all in all, I am enjoying this. So far so good. I haven't picked up on anything besides the cringy romance that I'm hating. That aside, I'm not disliking this book. I'm having a great time. I'm invested in the story. I want to know what's going to happen. There are definitely moments that feel more adventurous, and then there are moments that are kind of more like tedious, like we have to do these things in order to push the story along, but they're not necessarily the most interesting things going on. So yeah, I'm going to keep reading. It has taken me a while. It's been like another 2 weeks since the last time I recorded anything for this video, so it is taking me a while to get through it. But I am enjoying it, which is interesting, because I feel like normally when I enjoy a book, I like will fly through it in like a couple of days. When I read Fourth Wing, I think I read Fourth Wing in like 3 or 4 days or something. This one is taking me much, much longer. But it's not for the sake of me not enjoying it, because I am enjoying it. So I'm going to get back to it, and I will update you guys probably once I get like halfway or so into the book. Will be my next update. So I'll see you guys then. Alright, so I have finally finished Iron Flame. It only took me like, I don't know, 2 months almost to finish this book, but I finally finished. And I have to say that I feel like I am ending this book with more questions than I started with, which I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just stating it as a fact. I feel like I have way more questions at the end of this book than I had going into it. So there's not a whole lot that I can really say about the ending of this book, especially without like spoilers and stuff. So I'm trying to like choose my words wisely. I guess what I can say is that I think that Brennan or Brendan, whatever his name is, if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. He was so funny. Like the way that he treated his mom throughout the book was really funny. It's unfortunate with the ending of the book how it all went down. I feel like he's probably going to have a lot of guilt in the next book about the things that he did in this book in respect to his mother, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't hilarious when it was happening. Every time he spoke to this woman, I found myself just like cracking up because he was so serious. Like the stuff he was saying wasn't meant to be funny. It wasn't like he was cracking jokes. He was so serious, and that to me made it 10 times funnier. But yeah, we'll see how all of that plays out, I guess, in the next book, because I imagine he's probably gonna look back on that and have regrets. It also, now that I finished the book, it makes sense why they brought back the character that they brought back. Earlier, I was like, of all the characters, like, why would you choose them? I kind of get it now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other characters that the author could not have chosen to bring back as well, or in addition to. Like, I think that when my favorite character died in the last book, if the author had chosen to bring that character back for the purpose of like what she brought this other character back for, I would have been very upset. Like, don't do that to them, because they don't deserve that character arc. But they could have found another reason, you know, to bring them back. I will say that they make a lot of mention of that character throughout this book. They like, I will say that character's name is probably in this book more than any other character's name is in this book, even though they aren't in the actual book. So I do appreciate that, like, the legacy, you know, the reputation that they had kind of like lived on, even though they're not here in this book. And I'm still holding out that maybe the author will bring this character back at some point in the story, like in a later book in the series. But the character that she did bring back, I do think that like there was a very interesting kind of like turn of events, an interesting twist, if you will, with that character. It wasn't so much the twist itself that was interesting, it was more so like the reason behind the twist, like the reason why the twist happened, I think was what was interesting about it. I'm not surprised that there was a twist, that, you know, something ended up happening with this character, because they like bring this character back in like the middle of the story and then do nothing with it. I'm like, well, obviously she didn't bring this character back for no reason. There's obviously a reason. So I kind of was expecting something to come of that at some point. But like I said, the reason behind it, the explanation, the backstory, whatever, I was like, oh, okay. I think the most annoying thing about this book, if I'm being totally honest, is the drama of the relationship between Xaden and Violet. Like right before they go out to do like this big, you know, battle scene that happens at the end, Xaden and Violet are like getting hot and heavy in the bedroom, and I'm just like, y'all are really about to like do moments before you're about to be attacked. Like, we don't have time for this, okay? I need your heads in the game. Outside of the annoying romance, I didn't really have much of an issue with this story, other than the fact that it took me so long to read it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I don't know that I would ever go back and reread it just because it was so long, but I didn't have any issues with it. There was never a point where like I wasn't enjoying it, unless it was one of those unnecessary romantic tension scenes. I liked the characters, I liked the banter, I liked the conspiracy. Like, the conspiracy really was my favorite thing about the whole thing. Like I said, the ending wasn't bad. I will say that the ending, I was expecting more. I was expecting a more dramatic ending. I mean, it was dramatic, but not, I didn't feel torn. I didn't feel rage or despair or sorrow. You know, I felt stuff at the end of the first book. Between that character dying and then the reveal that you get at the end, I was just like, wow, like my emotions were all over the place, right? But with this book, I was just like, there is a character that dies, but I'm just like, okay, like I won't miss you, but okay. And then there is a reveal, and it was a good reveal, and I'm like, ooh, like what's gonna happen? But at the same time, because there were so many questions that I had, the questions that I have about this story and the plot and the things that are unanswered by the end, that to me outweighed like the reveal and like the shock and the surprise. Like, I'm just so focused on like, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I just feel like the ending of the first book just had more of an impact for me than this one did. I think overall I'm probably gonna give this, it's feeling like maybe, I don't know, I'm gonna give it a 3.5. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like, you know, the best. I don't necessarily think that it was better than Fourth Wing by any means. But you know, it wasn't bad. So now that I have finally finished this book, I am now going to move on to my second recommendation. And I guess before I get into the recommendation, I should probably tell you who this recommendation came from. When I met these different cast members, there was one in particular who was unsurprisingly grumpy. If you know anything about the cast members of this show, then you probably already know who I'm talking about. But I asked this particular individual for a book recommendation, and they were unable to give me one. So in lieu of them giving me one, their significant other gave me one, which is why I'll be reading the book that I'm going to be reading for this character's recommendation. You may know this character as the hero hair brooding Stefan, also known as Paul Wesley. But like I said, Paul, when I asked him, he was like, I don't know. Like he was like, he doesn't read books. I don't know. He didn't have a recommendation for me. So his lovely girlfriend Natalie gave me the recommendation of The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This author's writing is heavy. It's emotional and stuff like that, which is not typically what I read. So this will be very interesting. Also kind of on brand for Stefan's character because Stefan is the one that is like very emotional. So yeah, this is what I'm going to be reading. I don't know at all what this book is about. People like her writing from what I've heard. It's just heavy and it's emotional, and those are two things that I don't typically gravitate towards. So we're gonna see how this goes. Also, this book, I did not know until I bought this today how thick this book was. Good grief. Like, how many pages is this? Oh, it looks like it's over 500 pages. Oh, yeah, it's like 560, 550, something like that. My goodness. Oh, how did I manage to pick probably the two chunkiest books out of all the recommendations that I got? These are probably the two chunkiest ones. Actually, no. I think there's one that I got that might be longer than this one. This one and Iron Flame are probably like in the top 3 longest books. How I managed to put these two in the same video, I don't know. It was not on purpose. It was not intentional. I literally did not even know until just now. So wish me luck. Hopefully this doesn't take me another 2 months to read like it did with Iron Flame. Has to do with World War II, which I actually like World War II. Well, that came out so wrong. In history, that is one of the more interesting time periods to learn about. It's set during World War II in France, and it's about 2 sisters surviving and falling in love, maybe? I don't really know. I'm trying to get freedom. That's like what I took away from that. This is a really long book to explain all of that, but alright. Let's jump into this, and I will report back once I've maybe like a third of the way in. I felt like this was a good stopping point. I'm at about like the 33-ish% mark, somewhere between like 33 and 35%, somewhere in there. So I felt like this was a good point to stop and do like a check-in. Also, if this clip is like really like weirdly angled, I'm filming this on my phone because my camera is in a different room right now. So I wanted to get this update done before I listen to any more, otherwise I'll forget. So I'm intrigued by this book. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting to be as intrigued by this as I am. I honestly was a little bit nervous going into it because I was concerned that this was going to be boring. I'll be completely honest. And so I am pleasantly surprised, at least thus far. I feel like the focus, in my experience, has not been on like the other countries that were also invaded. And so I think that this is an interesting perspective reading about, like, you know, a country like France, who, like I said, just in my experience in learning about World War II over the years of school and stuff like that, France has never been a country, other than like the Normandy thing, like France has never been a country that they spend much time talking about. And so it's interesting getting like the perspective of people that were living in France and like the things that they were experiencing, even just like the way that they got invaded and like the propaganda and the different things. I really find the dynamic between the 2 sisters, I think it's Vianne and Isabel. I think Vianne is the older sister who has a daughter named Sophie. and her husband like went off to fight in the war, and now apparently he has been captured or something, or at least that's what they said. They said that he's like a prisoner of war or something. And then you have Isabel, the younger sister, who was also spunkier and feistier and more outspoken. And she really wants to get involved. She really wants to make a difference. She really wants to contribute and do anything that she can to basically get the Nazis out of France and to kind of take France back and like free France. And I like her. I think that both of the sisters have their own ways in which they can be very annoying or frustrating. But I think overall, I do like Isabel a little bit more. It's interesting too because you have Sophie, who is like, I don't know, I think they said that she's like 7 or 4. I don't know. She's like a little kid. And kind of seeing her and how this is shaping her views on politics and stuff like that, and the influence that Isabel is having on her at such a young age, and Vianne wanting to protect her daughter and doesn't want Isabel's influences, you know, influencing her daughter. Also, seeing how this community worked together and how they were truly a community and they all like knew each other and they took care of each other's families and kids and stuff like that. And then, you know, these military men, these Nazis and everything coming in and kind of like breaking that up. And I don't think that this is based on a true story. I probably should find out. I don't think it's based on a true story, but I imagine that there probably are a lot of influences, you know, from real people's lives that kind of influenced the writing of this story. So it's interesting. It is definitely interesting. And now we have Isabel, who is getting involved in like the underground resistance. There's also another timeline that we follow every now and then. I think it's like it's not present day because I think it's like 1995 or something like that. But we're following like some old lady, and it's unclear who this woman is. I'm assuming it's one of the sisters, but then I also was thinking that maybe it's Sophie. Curious to see where this story is going to go because I'm still have a ways to go. I'm interested to see what's going to happen because I have been told on numerous occasions that Kristen Hannah's writing is emotional and it'll make you cry and all these kinds of things, and I don't see that happening yet. I don't see any reason why I will be crying yet, but there's definitely still time. I know one of the things that Vianne is dealing with right now is the fact that the Germans that have come into France, they are basically hoarding all of the resources, the food and all that kind of stuff. They're hoarding it for themselves, and the people who actually live in this town, like the actual citizens and residents of this town, have to have like these ration cards where they can only get like a little bit of food per day, and like I think like the heat and the electricity and stuff like that isn't really working, or like it's too expensive and people can't afford it. A lot of people have been losing their jobs. It's just kind of like a chaotic time for these people who were literally just minding their business in France, just doing their thing in this seemingly small town. We're trucking right along, you know. I will of course update you guys probably once I get to like the 60 or 75, somewhere in there. Once I get that far along, I'll check in again and see if there are any updates worth sharing, which I'm sure there will be. And we'll see if I cry at all. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think I will. But I hear, like I said, I've heard this book is emotional. I've heard that all of her books are emotional. So we'll see if this one will be the first book to ever make me cry. So I am back with another update. I am now about 75-ish% into this story, and I feel like so much has happened from the last check-in to now. Namely, I feel like a lot of characters have died, I was not expecting that many characters to die in such a short period of time, or at least what feels like such a short period of time since the last check-in to now. We've lost quite a few characters. There were some that I was like really shocked by. I was like, whoa, okay, this is happening. Didn't see that coming. And then there are others where I'm like, yeah, this person has to die. Like there's no other way to end this character's story. Like they gotta go. So some I was shocked by, some I definitely saw coming. I definitely understand why people feel like this is an emotional read, or why people might read this and like, you know, it might make them cry, whatever. Have I cried? No. I've definitely been shocked, but nothing has happened that has like brought me to tears. So I don't know. I mean, there's still time. I still have like a quarter of the book left, so there's still time. But so far, no tears yet. But yeah, lots of character deaths, which I was, you know, not expecting quite so many, especially in the way that it all played out. I do think that the pacing of this book is really good. I think that stories like this can have a tendency to be kind of slow or boring and stuff like that. And I do find that I am invested in the story. Like, I'm invested in these characters and I do want to know what happens, which I feel like, again, stories like this, especially with like historical fiction and stuff like that, it's hard to do that for me. And this book is definitely doing it. Again, maybe it's because I have a soft spot for World War II. It could be that. I don't know. I find this story to be interesting because there are certain things that are happening in this story and that happened, you know, in real life, in history during this time, that feel similar to things that are happening now in America. And it definitely has given me a different perspective, and it's having me look at it in a way that I had not looked at it before. So that is very interesting. One of the things that I think is really nice, as far as this story in particular goes, and like the character development that we're getting in this, you know, you see these two sisters clash because they're on very opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to that. And Isabel was very much like, you know, a rebel and wanted to resist and fight back, and Vianne was like, no, like, just do what you're told and this will all be over, you know, soon enough kind of attitude. And I think that we're seeing this shift, this turnaround in Vianne's character, where she's finally realizing that Isabel was right all along, and that Vianne grossly underestimated what this experience was going to be like, not just for her, but, you know, for her community, for her country, and even globally. She's starting to see the effects, you know, and originally she kind of just wanted to like sit back, let it play out, it'll be fine. And now she's saying like, oh no, we can't just sit back and let this happen, because awful things are happening by us sitting here and not doing anything, or by me sitting here and not doing anything, because Isabel is off doing her thing. It's unfortunate that the things that happened had to happen for her to get to this point. But I think that it's not a good thing that these things happen, but it's good that Vianne is finally where she's at and is finally being like, okay, I need to actually do something and like help these people, because the people that we entrusted, that we thought were going to protect us, are not doing that, and they're not going to do that. And things are only going to get worse if we don't somehow do something about it. And so Vianne is finally trying to find a way to get involved, and we're starting to see her like the beginning stages, the planning stage, I guess, of her figuring out what she's going to do, how she's going to contribute to this, and try to, you know, help the situation as best she can. I just have so many questions. So I'm excited to get to the end of this so that hopefully those questions get answered. But I'm also nervous because I feel like a bunch more characters are probably going to die. So not really looking forward to that. I thought that I was even potentially going to DNF it, but here I am with like a quarter left to go, and I really am like wanting to know what's going to happen in the end. So of course I'll be back once I'm actually finished to give my final thoughts and close out this vlog. But yeah, I'll check back in with you guys once I'm done, and we'll talk then. I have officially finished The Nightingale, and I am surprised that I finished this, honestly, because this was a book that going into it, I thought that there was a possibility that I might DNF, just because it's a 500 plus page historical fiction about two Parisian women in France during World War II, which is so out of the realm of like what I would normally read or be interested in or pick up. And I'm glad that I read this. I had a very good time with this. It still was just really interesting, like seeing the story told from this type of perspective. And this is kind of from the perspective of someone who wasn't really in the mix of it. They weren't you know, one of the target demographics that were being tortured and stuff like that. They were someone that really could have just existed on their own and just minded their business and not been involved at all. And instead they chose to get involved. But then not even just the fact that they chose to get involved, it's also interesting because you get to see that these people who had nothing to do with it, you know, weren't part of the targeted group, they still went through a lot of stuff. And I feel like that's a story that I've never heard before. You never really hear, or I never really hear people talk about what was everybody else in the country doing. Like, while these things were happening in these concentration camps and they were rounding up these people and torturing them, killing them, separating them, whatever, what was everybody else doing during this time? And so I feel like this book like is an answer to that question. I'm sure there are a lot of different answers. I'm sure there are a lot of different perspectives and POVs that you could get on what people were doing during this time. But I feel like I have never come across one until now. The ending was, like I said, satisfying. You get the reveal of who the woman is, and I don't think it was who I thought it was going to be. I don't remember who I predicted it was going to be, but I don't think it turned out to be whoever it was that I predicted. I can't remember. I mean, I remember who it is, but I don't remember who I predicted. So yeah, that was really interesting to see how the whole ending, and like you get to see some of the characters, you know, like 50 years later. And that was kind of nice to see who made it and who didn't, kind of thing, and kind of where they're at now. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this. I'm glad that I read this. So thank you, Natalie, for recommending this, because this is not a book that I probably would have picked up otherwise, to be quite honest. I will say that I struggled deciding what I wanted to rate this. And the reason being is because, like I mentioned, this is so far out of the realm of what I typically would read. When I wanted to rate it, I wanted to give it a high rating. But for me, when I do my ratings of books, the way that the first question that I always ask myself is this a book that I would reread? And if the answer is yes, then it gets at least a 4-star, if not higher. And if the answer is no, then it gets a 3.75 or lower. And this is not a book that I would reread. I don't foresee myself ever rereading this, if I'm being completely honest. However, I don't feel like a 3.75 is an appropriate rating for this book. I feel like this book is much closer to, like, I don't know, a 4 point something, if not a 5-star. But I was also comparing it to the other books that I've rated for 4.5, 5, whatever stars. And I just feel like this doesn't really make sense in those categories with the other books that are already in those categories. And so then I was kind of in a dilemma. And I honestly feel like there needs to be like a different category entirely for something like this. Something that was really good, but that you would never read again. Like, I don't know. I've never read anything like that before. I've never read a book where I thought it was like an excellent piece, but that I know that I would never pick up again. And so this kind of caught me for a loop. And so I think I'm going to go with a 4.5. And it's just one of those things that I'll have to remember every time I see it, that like, yes, this thing is not like the others, but I don't think that there's any other place that is appropriate for this to go other than the 4.5 category. So that is what I'm going to lock in for this book. Thank you so much to Natalie, our honorary TBD cast member, and Melise for recommending me these books. Let me know down below in the comments if you read either of these and what you thought of them, what you rated them. If you made it this far into the video, drop a comment down below of which cast member you think I might do next for the next installment of the Vampire Diaries Cast Recommends Me books. If you haven't already, before you go, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are not already subscribed, check out more of my content here and here. Be sure to ring that bell so you are notified the next time I post, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.